What's good, guys? So today's video are my top 5 spots, in no particular order, to farm experience solo in Diablo 4 from levels 1 to 50. I was going to make a best spot, but honestly there are so many variables that it's hard to call something objectively the best in this game. From your class, to your build, to your level, to enemy type and variety, it's hard to say any one of these spots is objectively better than the others. Also, I think having 5 locations helps simply because if you get bored with one spot, you have other options to explore. The best spot to farm experience is going to be the spot you enjoy playing enough to make it feel like less of a grind after all. I will timestamp these locations, so if you try one and don't enjoy it, you can check the others without having to watch the whole video over again. Before we get into it, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, all I ask for is a like, as it's super helpful with the video's discovery. With that said, here we go. First spot is pretty simple. It's the 2 Field of Hatred zones. Now you may be saying, hey, I don't want to level in a PvP zone, I don't enjoy the threat of getting ganked while I'm trying to level up. I totally get that and it's completely fair, but if you don't mind the occasional run-in with other players, the Fields of Hatred has tons of elites and great enemy density. There are plenty of events to do for Obols, and if you are brave enough to do the ritual, possibly some Shards of Hatred to gamble on gear in town. This spot depends a lot on your personal preference, but is as good as option as any, and I will say a lot of people seeing lower levels grinding in this area may just leave you alone. Even if they don't though, if you get downed, all you lose is your Shards of Hatred. There is no repair cost from dying to other players, and you keep all your loot and Obols. Also, there are consistently Tree of Whisper tasks to do here, so it's an efficient way to get Whisper caches for even more experience and loot. The second option is going to be the Hallowed Glacier from the Call of the Ancient side quest. This dungeon is located east of Kiovashad at the Bear Tribe Refuge. Now this option takes a little bit of work on our part as it requires that we do 3 side quests to open up the dungeon. Also, you may have already completed this without realizing the potential value of the dungeon, and if you have, sadly, this won't be an option for the character who finished this side quest chain. A simple way to check if you aren't sure if you've completed this quest chain is to check your available titles. If one of those titles is the Bear, unfortunately that means you've completed the quest chain and can't access the dungeon anymore. If you haven't though, the first quest that you have to do is called Shattered Tribute. This is from Senna just south of the waypoint. The second quest is called the Beast Challenge from Greganok west of the waypoint. And the third quest is also from the same quest giver called Hammer of the Champions. This quest will also need you to complete the Stronghold Malnock to unlock the entrance to the dungeon where this quest is completed. Now the third quest didn't become available for me till level 20, although I couldn't find anything specifically saying that this was a requirement for the quest. Just know that if you don't see the third quest in town, this might be why. Once these 3 quests are completed, there will be a 4th quest from the village chieftain Glaus called Call of the Ancients that will open up the dungeon. This dungeon has fantastic enemy and elite density and can be done fairly quickly. There is a boss to the dungeon, however, as we want to keep the dungeon available to repeat, we are going to forego beating the final boss. When you beat the sub-boss right before you pick up the Bloodstone is generally when I leave the dungeon to relog my character. The next option is the stronghold Kor Dragan. To reach this, we will first travel northwest from Kiovashad to the Menestad waypoint. From here, Kor Dragan is north and slightly east of Menestad. This is a vampire-based stronghold. The first time I came here, the mobs were around level 30, so if that's the case for you, possibly hold off till level 25-ish to do this one. This stronghold has you destroying 3 large blood sacks that all have 2 smaller blood sacks that must be destroyed before you can damage them. Each larger blood sack has veins coming off of it that you can track back to the smaller ones. Once all 3 large blood sacks have been destroyed, you will be able to damage a wall of tissue that opens up the way to the final boss of the stronghold. Normally I say skip bosses in this guy, but the boss in this case spawns multiple elites during the fight, so I would down the boss and just don't interact with the altar after the boss fight, as it'll complete the stronghold and lock you out from repeating it. As long as you haven't already completed this stronghold, there is very good mob and elite density, and the enemy always scales slightly higher than you in level for bonus experience. Also, there are 2 dungeons in the area you can do if you feel the need to add a little variety to the grind. West of Kor Dragan is the Forbidden City, and northwest of there is Mercy's Reach. These are both decent dungeons you can do if you don't want to log out and manually reset Kor Dragan. I would say with both these dungeons though, once you've completed them the first time, I would skip the final boss in both of these cases as it just slows down the grind. The 4th option is one that anyone can do, and that is Dead Man's Dredge. This dungeon is located southeast of Kiovashad, and the closest waypoint is going to be west of the dungeon at the town of Yelesna. From Yelesna we will travel east. This dungeon has no final boss. It requires us to kill elites for Animus in the first section and free prisoners in the second section, so it can be done very quickly. Also, when you leave the dungeon, there is an event directly east of the entrance, as well as a bunch of packs of ghouls west at Sepilova Pond, as well as a cellar on the west side of the pond. These are locations you can do to add a little variety while you wait for the dungeon to respawn if you don't care to log out and back in. The last location in this video is the Stronghold Temple of Rot. This stronghold is located to the east of the northernmost Fields of Hatred. This is another stronghold, so if you already completed this one, it won't be an option as well. To get to the Temple of Rot, the nearest waypoint is southeast at Girandai. Once you make your way north to the temple, travel up the west side of the stronghold, clearing out as you go. Then you make your way back down the center of the stronghold, taking out all the elites. Once all the elites have been taken out, the path to the stronghold's boss will open up. When you head down the path, there is a pack of 3 elites that you can take out before you log and reset the stronghold. I don't suggest fighting the final boss as I did with Kor Dragan, because here the final boss doesn't spawn a bunch of elites like it did there. That's gonna do it for my top 5 locations to grind for experience to get a character to level 50. From there, I would suggest moving on to Nightmare Dungeons. Hopefully you find this helpful, and if you have a favorite location, please let me know down in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, thank you, and maybe consider subscribing. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this one. Catch y'all next time. Until then, get awesome.